government of any society has a huge role to play in fast-tracking entrepreneurial pursuits within their spheres of governance. In rising up to the challenge of this responsibility, governments of the 6 states in Nigeria's southwest geopolitical zone, sometime in July 2013, partnered with a non-profit organization called Development Agenda for Western Nigeria, Dawn Commission. On this episode, the Talk TV crew ventures to find out what the partnership has achieved since inception by way of facilitating, promoting, and fast-tracking business activities within the southwest geopolitical region in Nigeria. Welcome, Sheye Oyeleye and Dipo Famakinwa, directors at Dawn Commission. Dipo Famakinwa, Sheye Oyeleye, thank you very much for joining me on this panel.
My pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Development Agenda for Western Nigeria. Would that be a social enterprise?
No.
How will you describe the model that you're pursuing?
It's a strategy. It's a strategy for development. It's a strategy for what I would call collaborative actions where possible, collaborative governance where possible, acting together, working together, thinking together, and deploying resources and capacities together across the states in the southwest. So it's just basically a strategy for development.
How do you hope to achieve that? You are not a government agency.
I won't say stricto sensus like that. We are a government agency, but we work for government. We are what you can call a quasi-government agency, having been formed by government and also funded by government. When I say government, I mean all the states in the southwest, all the governments in the states in the southwest part of Nigeria.
All the 6 states.
All the 6 states have come together to empower this commission, which is called Dawn Commission. Dawn is Development Agenda for Western Nigeria. But in order not to make it a strategy that is hanging in the air, a commission was formed to be the institutional platform upon which that strategy will be fully pursued.
Will you describe this as a substitute for the old drug group?
Absolutely not.
Or an appendage?
No. I mean, if you think Dawn Development Agenda for Western Nigeria, it encompasses every other thing. Odua is more of an investment arm in the company. When you're talking of development, encompasses health, education, culture, sports, tourism. We're more all encompassing. So it's different from Odua.
Yeah, there's a way you put it on your website when I visited. You described yourself as a technocratic institution for the sustainable development of the southwest region. The impression I go away with reading that is that you want to see yourself as a cerebral arm of the society.
Well, cerebral, yes. But of course, there are people who are doing even much better than us in that regard. There are people whose work on a day-to-day basis is to think and and do research, work on theoretical frameworks for all the things that you want to achieve. There are also people whose day-to-day function is to ensure that many of those ideas are delivered, concretely for development.
Are you talking of the civil service?
I'm talking of the bureaucrats, the civil service.
The bureaucrats
but we stand in the middle, we take those development ideas, the development theories, the research that has been done, and we bring it into our own environment, process them, and turn them into action plans and action programs for the bureaucrats to deal with at their own level. So that's why we call ourselves a technocratic organization. We process many of those ideas, many of those research works, many of those theoretical frameworks, process them into what will therefore be useful, and make development happen to the people.
And your focus is regional focus, the southwest region.
Absolutely.
How would you situate that within the context of globalization?
Again, as I said, the world itself is actually moving into regional blocks.
Moving away from globalization.
Globalization, yeah. Well, regional blocks within the global environment. It's been the realization has come that regional blocks have a stronger voice on the global stage. So, as an example, you have EU, the European countries coming together on the EU. We have ECOWAS here in Africa.
West Africa.
In West Africa. In the North African states, they have, I've forgotten his name now. When you have these blocks, they have the COSAFA, whatever it's called, in South Africa.
Yes.
Now, when you have these regional blocks, they tend to articulate an agenda for the particular region. They speak collectively, and the world listens. We're moving away from the individual little country whose voice is not heard, or his voice is the voice is not important on that stage. So what you want is and that's basically one of the things that's driven the development agenda for Western Nigeria. We are a region of 40-45 billion within the Nigerian context. We've come to realize that rather than individual states operating the global stage, which is going to be more or less impossible, we felt that coming together, we called it in Yoruba, Badol, putting resources together, coming together and speaking with one voice will have a greater effect. People will listen to you. An investor, as an example, will want to talk to a population of 45 million than the population of 2 million. It makes economic sense to me.
I quite agree with you in terms of the idea of regional blocks. It's not new even in the world, as it were, but along the line we were sold on the idea of globalization and everybody began to create their necks beyond their garden, as it were. But I think the realization is becoming rife around the world now that actual development must be community-based, as it were. So let's go into specifics here. Since you started your operations nearly 2 years ago, what are the specificities that you would point out or highlight that your work has been able to unearth in terms of developmental issues for the southwestern part of Nigeria?
Well, basically it's for us to look at the areas where we want to focus on as a region, because we can't possibly do everything. Is to
competitive advantage.
Yeah, is to see areas where we have common problems, where we have common challenges, where we also have what I would call common advantages, okay? And see how we could mitigate those common challenges and common afflictions, and also how we could leverage the common advantages, okay? And we've seen, for instance, that clearly for us here, education is very important. What I'll put within the social sector, education and health, very clearly very important, because it forms the basis for human development. We've also seen very clearly, that economic development is very important, and we're looking at how we could create a region that is competitive as a bloc rather than as individual states. We've also clearly seen that security is very important. We want an environment that is secure. We want a territory that we can call a secure law and order territory. We've also discovered in the course of putting our actions and other thoughts together that we need to also manage our environment if we want to move into the future that we talk about. So those are the kinds of things that we've been looking at. And what we do is to develop strategy roadmaps around those areas and see how our states could actually work together in concert in either solving those problems together or taking advantage of many of those things that we see as competitive areas for ourselves. So talking about what we have done specifically, what we have done is first and foremost to create conversations around many of our problems, of many of our challenges, and also see how we can optimize the opportunities that we have together. We've also we've also developed and then create a competitiveness strategy roadmap around that. We've looked at the creative economy, for instance. We've created a roadmap for optimizing that industry. We've looked at issues of development of our education we are concerned that the education that we have in the Southwest, or perhaps in many parts of Nigeria, does not deliver learning and character. And we are clearly very focused on that. So we've worked on a number of templates and programs that the states in the Southwest, should begin to pursue together. Part of what we have also done is to share best practices. What is one state doing that the other states can copy? Okay. For instance, we've seen that in many instances, Lagos has some mature systems, and many of those mature systems can be replicated across the region. There's no need in reinventing the wheel. If one state, for instance, is doing something that is outstanding, why don't you copy it in the other states? So we've shared best cases, we've shared best practices, and we've also created avenues for many of our, publics, what I would call government officials to meet and interact and talk about.
I was actually going to touch on that. How were you able to get all of these state governments to come on the same page and agree to pursue this agenda that you've established?
Well, I don't think we are doing anything that is particularly new. We all talk about Western Nigeria in fond memories. We talk about those times when we were able to do a lot of things together as a region. And having now come to the realization that, that model worked for us. I think everybody from government to whoever is interested in the development of the region, everybody came to the realization that we needed to begin to pursue strong actions together, and that's the only way we can move. Okay, so it wasn't.
And ethno-political divide hasn't come to disrupt.
Well, what we have tried to do is to create conversations around the things that unite us rather than the things that separate us, and I think the governments have bought into that. The idea of setting up an institution to drive this kind of process is what is new. The idea itself is not new. Okay, so clearly the institution needs to do a lot more work in cobbling those coalitions, creating the conversations, and ensuring that they see the point of view that we're trying to drive. What might be immediately feasible to one government might not be. You might need to do a bit more work in trying to get that across to another. Okay, so those are the kinds of work that we do, but I don't think we've been too dissipated in terms of agreeing on the common ideas.
Coming up,
I need to know also, when in the course of this work, in terms of receiving information about investment opportunities, investment ideas, and all of the other variables that are integrated to drive investment activities. What specifics did you find out in terms of, each of the states?
The Southwest states, the governors, they realize that what we're talking about here is development, and development of the region for our people in the region. So whether you belong to the left of politics, or the side of politics, or you're from this ethnic group in Yoruba land, it means nothing.
Well, I can imagine someone.
The aim is for us to develop, and nobody is going to say, nobody should be anti-development.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're not having difficulties getting all the stakeholders, the major stakeholders on board.
No, please let me correct that. It's not that we are not having difficulties, but in spite of those difficulties, we are still moving together. I said something in my earlier statement that sometimes you might need to do some more work, selling some of those ideas to certain people who might perhaps, because of their own political persuasions, be a little bit cautious in jumping on the train, but significantly in terms of moving together on many of the things that we have agreed upon, the difficulties are not very significant.
Now, how would you describe your own efforts in consonance with the regional integration that has been proposed at several forums in the past, which hasn't worked to the best of our knowledge?
Yeah, this is regional integration. That's pure and simple. This is to say, okay, gentlemen, this is us as a people. We have these issues that confront all of us together. I'll give you an example. When Ebola surfaced in Nigeria, it came through Lagos. Within that week, all the governors in the Southwest met in Lagos to talk about how the Ebola scourge will be, quickly wiped out. And it would interest you to know that Ebola did not even get to Ogun State, which is the nearest state to Lagos. It didn't happen by accident. It happened because there was a consciousness that, listen, if this thing comes, this affliction is going to affect all of us, so let's deal with it together. So that's what regional integration promises. That's the agenda for regional integration. And to also tell ourselves, for instance, that, we're embattled here because this environment looks like perhaps the safest zone in Nigeria. When people have security difficulties in their environment, or even sometimes even economic difficulties in their environment, this looks like the space that they usually want to come.
And I'm happy you said that, because all of the variables you touched upon, health, education, security, social infrastructure, all of these things work together for business and enterprise.
Yeah.
And because, of course, this platform is for propagation and promotion of entrepreneurial ventures.
Yeah.
I consider your efforts not only just germane, but also directly relevant, to our purpose as a media house which seeks to promote enterprise. Let's dovetail discussion. Let's narrow our discussion down now to specifics, which is, I'm aware also that there is a unit within your commission that is dedicated specifically to enterprise development, facilitation of investment. Please tell us about that, please.
Yeah, so we have a specific desk for regional investments. The actual title of that job is regional advisor for business and investments, something along the lines. And as I was saying in real time, basically his job is to be like a one-stop shop, one-stop desk in the region for any potential investor coming in. In the past, you have investors having to go all around the 6 states trying to get information, trying to have this. What we have done in the commission is, through that desk, we're able to bring together all the information from the 6 states, the 6 states of the region, Lagos, Oyo, Ogun, Osun, Ondo, and Ekiti. Brought it together with accurate data. It's like if a potential investor is coming into the region, they see us as the point of contact where they can get whatever information they want.
On any
of the states. We did that by obviously going around the states, and like I said, not just taking the information hook, line, and sinker. We brought it back to the commission, put a lot of data with the information, so that if anyone comes up and wants to invest in Ogun State, say for example, we'll be able to give them enough information on what they want. And they found that it's been very useful because we've had foreign potential investors coming to us and talk to us because they see us at that point of contact. They find it very easy to talk to us through that desk.
So what you have done is to provide a warehouse of information, ideas that can facilitate investment in any state or any part of the southwestern state. Now, in what form is that information available as we speak?
Well, the information is available. There's a handbook for investment information for the Southwest. We've also created a website, even though we haven't gone live on the website, but there's a website also that has all that information. We still have a bit of technical issues that we need to fine-tune in-house, but as soon as the technical issues are fine-tuned, all of that information will be uploaded on the website, and you can have strategic investment information from all our states. Okay,
from one point.
From one point. So you log into that process. You would find all the information that you need.
So potential investors, all they need to do is to contact the commission.
Oh, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
for that, at your fingertips, you will have virtually all the necessary information that will guide you in your investment decisions.
And also because we as a commission, we have what they themselves convening powers. So we can, if need be, and they need to speak to the states jointly, we can easily convey written of specific people in charge of whatever the investment thing is.
That's interesting.
Come around and they can talk to them directly instead of going around speaking to all the stuff. We bring them down to our office and facilitate meetings.
So in addition to your effort to generate inputs for quality policy formulation by governments around the Southwest, you're also serving as facilitators of ideas on investment opportunities and also investment areas.
Let me mention something. It is now our responsibility to put all of that together under a unified platform. So create an economic or an investment or an opportunity summit, you know, for the region, rather than doing it on a state-by-state basis like we had in the past. So that falls also within our responsibilities, and it also aligns with our strategy to pursue economic development, because then we'll be exposing our region as a block, as an economic block, as a unit of economic opportunities, instead of trying to do state by state.
Is that a thought in the pipeline? Because I'm excited.
Yeah, that's absolutely. It's in the pipeline. We will always, you know, one thing that we try to do is to look for a space to do the things that we need to do. Currently, what the space that we have right now is a bit, you know, heavy on the political side because of elections, swearing in and all that. But as soon as that space is clear, it's one of the things that we intend to do as soon as possible. If you can't have one this year, we'll certainly have one next year.
So beautiful. Then do you have strategies in place to ensure that it's not going to just end up as another talking shop?
It won't, and that's the reason why the commission is in existence. Okay, I'm sure in the wisdom of the governments that set up the commission, they also understood their limitations in driving through some regional programs, and therefore they decided to create a specialized commission, a commission that is, you know, that is directly in charge of making sure that happens. And every day we go out, that's what we tell ourselves. Every day we go to work, we are probably the only organization, and we make bold to say that anywhere in the world, that all we do is about development in the Southwest.
Now, I need to know also, when in the course of this work, in terms of sieving information about investment opportunities, investment ideas, and all of the other variables that are integrated to drive investment activities, what specifics did you find out in terms of, I mean, each of the states? I mean, let's just have a kind of roll call of some of the items that one would find.
You see,
one takes that brochure.
One thing you will find is that we're quite capable in so many areas together. So we've looked at areas of competitive advantage, you know, for us in the region, and we think agric is still one sector that can give us a lot of competitiveness. The digital economy is one area. That's ICT, including money, my mobile money, e-banking and stuff like that. Tourism is also one very significant area. The micro, small and medium enterprises, that's one area. The creative economy, that we can provide opportunities for our people, you know. And what we have done in many of those areas is to look for strategic information, strategic data that will present us the way we are and also project us the way we want to be.
And you already have those?
Oh yes, we have those information. Like I told you, we worked on a document, we worked on a strategy roadmap for economic competitiveness, which we hope to launch very soon. And that document is what we want to use to bring our private sector on board the development process.
Because listening to you, my fuse is blown, except that there's a caution. We've had talks like this in the past, brilliant expositions, but in reality, what people say is that these things are just not practicable, considering the socio-political terrain in which we found ourselves, and also, of course, the economic base of our people. So, have you looked into that angle in putting these policy designs together?
Let me stretch the.
What constraints have you observed in terms of socio-political and economic situation of the Southwest, as it were?
I'll be able to mention constraints now. I would like to stretch the, like he mentioned, culture, for example. Ekiti State telling Lagos State that all your cassava leaves, I can produce this. Lagos State is a ready market that buys everything. What I'm trying to tell you is,
So it's already happening.
it is happening. They have seen beyond, we've gone beyond political differences or social norms or anything. We are now at the stage of implementing, and I'm just using Agric as one major example where states are now collaborating very well, working.
And let me also illustrate what you just said.
Please.
In 2014, there was a games festival for all the secondary schools in the Southwest, hosted by Lagos, which was immensely successful. This was something that never happened.
And what was the duration?
It was about, I think it was 2 weeks. Yeah. That all the secondary school pupils in the Southwest were put in a camp in Lagos. And we had very successful football competition, swimming competition, and so on and so forth.
14 sports.
And 14 sports, you know, and we would have had one this year, but for politics again, you know. But you see, that's one thing that we have to keep battling with, whether you like it or not. You have to keep battling with the political space, but you have to find your space, even within that political environment, because politics must happen. Governments have to be put in place.
You're never going to have a time.
You're not going to have a time that's even unless you want a military regime. But if you are talking about democracy, then democratic activities must go on. The important thing is that those democratic activities must be able to facilitate social and economic development. You see, and like I said, this is the first time an institution of our nature is being set up to manage and drive this kind of process in our region.
And it's a good thing that you recognize the need for sustainability in all of your efforts, you know, and that's why I'm so excited, you know, at what you're doing. But I can't help but also look in the area of the digital economy that you talked about. A lot of our viewers out there will think to themselves, are these people just dreamers? Where are they coming from? We're not Chinese, we're not Japanese. How do they think they can facilitate a digital economy in the Southwest as it presently stands? How will you respond to that kind of misgiving, as it were?
It's happening already. The digital space is already out there. You just need, everybody is taking advantage of it as much as possible. But perhaps we need to see areas where you can find bigger opportunities for employing our young people. Don't forget that many of our young people, especially in the Southwest, we're talking of a demographic that I think about 70% of our population is in the youth demography, and where they play is the digital space mostly. How do you find economic opportunities within that digital space?
Yes, that's my question.
Yeah.
What in your work, in your various work along this line, what have you found out?
I told you about mobile money.
Yes.
That's a big space. About 2 years ago, the CBN was talking about agency banking. Okay, that's also a big space. There are a lot of opportunities in the internet, within the internet
So
community.
what have you designed right now to facilitate or mobilize existing human capital and any other kind of capital that you may have observed that's available in the Southwest, mobilizing them towards appropriating those opportunities that you have identified, those commercial opportunities in the ICT that you have identified? Is there the manpower? Is it available?
Oh yeah,
capacity?
what you need to build a structure. You need to build institutions to support that sector. Those institutions are not there. We need to put them, right now they're scattered, they're not in any way formalized. We need to find a mechanism to formalize it, by building appropriate institutions across all our states. Do you understand? That can, harness the capacity within that segment. Okay.
Now, in your policy,
we've also developed a strategic document on the digital economy itself, which will be one of the best ones. So it's going to be the Bible. It will be a template which we can then launch out. We find that it will be a reference point for a lot of young people. It will also basically direct policies of of our state governments, and also for anyone coming in from outside, the player in the industry in the Southwest. Template is there through what we developed in the strategy documents, which again we made available shortly.
The stakeholders. This will take a short break now, and when we return, we will go into the specifics of how do you hope to drive investment into the Southwest with your activity. Please don't go away.
Coming up.
In my own view, in my own personal view, there are only two tiers of government in the federation. You see, it's the federal government and the constituent unit.
Let's shift focus and attention from how you're facilitating state government efforts to individual relationship, potential investors who want to come into the region and appropriate the commercial opportunities that you've identified and highlighted. How can such persons take advantage of the platform that we have been able to facilitate?
Well,
What avenues are open?
I'll give you an example.
Please.
There was a foreign direct investment opportunities conference in London last year, which we participated very fully. That was a platform for us to engage the investment community in the UK. Many of them were interested in what was going on in Nigeria, specifically in the Southwest. We're able to, present the Southwest to them. Okay, and since then we've been having conversations with many of them on, areas of investment, especially in agric, in power, and so many other opportunities that we showed to the world during that conference. I also mentioned that we plan.
Conversation is still.
Oh yeah, the conversations are ongoing, and many times what we then do is to direct them to states where some of those opportunities could be best optimized. Recall I also said that we will start, if we don't have one this year, we'll have one next year, an economic summit. The economic summit is supposed to drive, supposed to present the region, okay, also to the investment community, not just the local investment, not just the foreign investment community, but also the local investment community. We'll continue to do that on an ongoing basis, to showcase what is possible in our region. And then conversations and business deals can start happening from such platforms.
Now, those are external opportunities, which is very, very important.
Yeah.
What about within the region itself?
Okay. What would
SMEs, startups?
Yeah. In fact, one of the things that we plan to do this year also, if we can grab the space, is to create a startup community. Okay. We want to create a formal startup community and convene a startup conference. Okay. Where they will bring, a lot of because what we have seen in the course of doing our work is that too many things are done haphazardly and in a nebulous manner.
There's no structure.
Yeah, no structure. So we are trying to create a structure, structured format for many of those things that happen in our region. We want to, for instance, create a startup community. We want to create a young in commercial agric community. We call them Nagopreneurs community. Those are young people in commercial agriculture. We want to create communities where we can continue to have, conversations for how those communities, would optimize the space. Because really, the strategy is an optimization strategy. It's a strategy that is saying, okay, let's bring everything on the table. Let's bring everything on board and see how we can move together on many of those things. So really, the idea for us is how do we optimize the space for the development of agric? How do we optimize the space for the development of, for making sure, ICT, and also the micro, small and medium enterprises, because we recognize the capacity of that also to generate revenue and also empower people. But significantly for us, it's also for us to look at the issue of power. okay, integrated power and integrated transportation across the region, because we know that those will form the basis for which those small and medium enterprises will thrive. Many of them are not doing too well today, or probably comatose or even dead, because there was no support in terms of structured support for accessing funds, structured support for building their capacity, structured support, in terms of provision of power, in terms of provision of transportation infrastructure and all of that. Once all those, once we're able to put all that in place, and it's better we do it not as individual states, but as a region, okay, and then we can begin to see the development of that sector.
Many of those countries where they have multinationals in large numbers operating, the multinationals are succeeding there because there's an existing MSME that is supporting their activity, and it's virile, it's active, it is competent. So they have less to focus on. They focus on what they do best, while the MSMEs take on other smaller responsibilities, and then they integrate and harmonize all of those various efforts, and that's how they have multinationals. Presently, we don't have that in the southwestern region. So if you bring in foreign direct investment, if there's no capacity, if there's no strong, virile MSME, I think you might still be discouraging investors, because that would mean their cost of running costs will be higher. They have to bring expatriates and bring all manners of, and also raise and generate. So that's why I was so particular about the MSMEs, what you're doing specifically. You've talked about Startup Conference, which is a good idea. But do you also have strategies in place to ensure that even after the conference, some of the brilliant ideas and also some of the potential startups, you don't just let them go back to their homes, because when that happens, you lose some of their ideas.
You can therefore see why we are interested in ensuring that we have the basic supporting infrastructure for many of those businesses to thrive. We have to do the first things first. We need power. We have to work around it as a region. We need the integrated transportation infrastructure. We have to work around it as a region. We need to develop our human capital institutions to produce the kind of quality human capital that we are talking about.
For you to come in and step in to bridge that gap, for me, is a welcome development. And before you go, I would also like to touch on the other tiers of government, because we're talking about the state governments up until now. The Southwest region or any of its states does not exist in isolation. You can't be an island unto yourself. We are a unit within a superstructure called Nigeria.
Yeah.
What has your engagement with the first tier of government been?
That's the federal government.
The federal government.
Oh yeah, I mean, we recognized very early that we needed to find very meaningful engagements with that tier of government, regardless of the political persuasions there. And that's one of the reasons why, for instance, we've tried to engage, not that we've tried to engage, we've engaged with the Ministry of Agric, because we see Agric as a major area of focus for us. What we try to do is to ensure that whatever we say we will do, we try as much as possible to pursue them and make sure that they are, mainstreamed into actions, rather than just leaving them at the point of discussion and not letting it go. This is what we do on a daily basis, and this is what we'll continue to do. We also believe that the space is even better optimized right now, because it looks like the people in Abuja might listen a bit more to us, and that would facilitate a lot of game-changing interactions between the region.
Has the potential of yielding accelerated.
Oh yeah, we believe it too.
We're not even inventing the wheel, to be honest. A lot of things have been done in the past.
It was abandoned at some point.
Absolutely. So we are not inventing the wheel. So if anyone thinks
so you're only trying to revive what was dying or dead.
Improve upon it. So if anyone is saying it's going to take 20 years, I don't believe that. Because we are not going out there to start something that's going to be started. How was it done in the past? Why were they successful? Can we reenact it? And because of it, they come to the realization that if you can survive as an individual state or as a single unit, coming together and become a no-brainer What's your business?
You're operating like a think tank, as I say it.
Yeah, you could call us a think tank, but you see, we're also action-oriented.
Listeners,
We've had 7 summits of the heads of service in the Southwest. Because
7 summits.
Seven
That's in 2
summits.
years.
Yeah, because we believe that the civil service is the most important, probably the most important development institution that we need to work with.
what about the third tier of government?
The local government. Well, you see, in my own view, in my own personal view, there are only 2 tiers of government in the federation. You see, it's the federal government and the constituent units. The states normally should determine what they want to do with their local governments. Okay, so we don't think in terms of Nigeria as federal government, federal, state, and local government. But we also recognize that we need to develop the capacity of our local governments. For instance, before the end of the year again, we are planning a local government conference that we'll be doing every year. And the idea behind that is to get the local government also on board the development process, let them understand their role, and also see how we could develop the capacity at that level. Because what we see is that many times the local governments are not able to deliver on their mandates. How do we work that out? That's part of what we have to do.
There are 3 arms of government. It's often been said that, and you have touched on social infrastructural developmental efforts. You've talked about physical infrastructure. But there are those who have also said that for the economic base of the milieu to develop, for entrepreneurship and business to be activated and propelled, the legal framework, the legal infrastructure is crucial. Have you been thinking along this direction in terms of reviving and putting in place an active legal framework that will facilitate and fast-track investment? Because there have been allegations that the legal framework in Nigeria as it presently stands is very weak. It's too weak to give the impetus, needed impetus for enterprise to thrive. What's your take?
I think what we need to do is to look at the existing laws, the ones that impede business growth, and see the ones that we need to perhaps review to support business growth. Lagos has done quite well along that line. Perhaps what we need to do is to look at what Lagos has done and see whether we can copy it. But beyond that is also to look at the laws, the existing laws that impede business. We are very concerned about ease of doing business in the Southwest. The Regional Investment and Advisory Board is very focused on that. How do we improve the business environment? How do we make ease of doing business? How do we rank very high on ease of doing business, because we're not doing too well. We need to look at that and see whatever it is that we need to do to ensure that we improve the business environment. That's a major focus for us going forward.
Sorry, just at the end of what you said. If you look at a country like Rwanda, where it's said that it takes 2 hours to register a business, how is Rwanda doing it? Can we replicate that?
And those are the kinds of cooperation that we need to have with the federal government. Because registering business, for instance, the CAC is under the control of the federal government. So those are the kinds. So we've also identified strategic national institutions that we need to work with to ensure that we can get through some of those things that you would expect that we will strengthen our relationships with the federal authorities going forward.
I believe so, and I'm very positive about what you gentlemen are doing, and you and your team. We can only wish you the best of endeavor in all of your undertaking. I also do believe that members of the public are taking note of your activities, and perhaps very shortly they'll be knocking on doors on your door to find out how they can benefit from some of your activities. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation.
It's my pleasure.
It's my pleasure. It's been a wonderful and stimulating time engaging with you. That'll be it on the program. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you. Bye.